This is Lindell Descant. Welcome to Music as a Metaphor. Today is October 29th. And once again, we're living in crazy times. So happy to sit down here today and talk about a few things. Talk out some stuff. Mainly karaoke, surprisingly. I've got all kinds of interesting things to talk about karaoke. Why? Well, life has been surprising lately, and I have found myself out at several different karaoke events of late, and I realized that it was something I never quite got around to talking about. Been going back and listening to my previous episodes and placing them up on YouTube. I'm up on episode 24 up on YouTube, so about 6 episodes ahead in recording. And I just have been trying to share a lot of different ways to use music as therapy. And I think a lot of us need some level of emotional support given the world that we're living in for the present time and what's going on. And surprisingly, karaoke can be a really good form of that. And I've been in some really interesting scenes. So part of the continuation of an adult recital series, like how to get adults out and about performing music in different ways. And karaoke is a great one. So we're going to talk about karaoke today. But I also want to circle back because what I'm finding is that as I'm going back and listening to like an episode a week, and then last week I was going through and cleaning a huge photo project to go through all of my photos of like the last 4 years, all my videos, and clean them out, organize them. I ended up in an interesting situation last week, and it basically was one of those weeks where I had to let everything drop. So we're going to talk about that as well, because that came up in also episode 23 that I dropped last week all at the same time. And there's been these wonderful coincidences where everything is just lining up for me and in my creative pursuits without it being about me controlling it. Right? It's sort of like I'm letting go of the reins, and then things are actually lining up in a way that are even better. And that is something that's available to all of us. That's something, it's a superpower that we all have when we start to tune into our connection to God and spirit, when we start to really understand how to listen to our own intuition. So that's maybe where we'll start today, with that spot of how to really let go. So my name is Lindell Descant. This is Music as a Metaphor. And so last week, it was one of those weeks. I had to drop everything. So I didn't do a show on freeworld.fm. I didn't put an episode up. I really did just let go of everything. And it wasn't from a bad place per se. Sometimes when I do that, it is because I'm dealing with some sort of emotional fallout and I really need to just all hands on deck, like give myself some time. And some of these deadlines, like putting up a show a week, they're my deadlines, right? Whereas, so I can kind of not do them, which is maybe not a good thing, but I can not fire myself if I decide not to put an episode up, whereas there's other obligations in my life where there's bigger consequences. So I don't have the ability to push those things around. But last week, I'm not even sure. I can't even remember what I was going through on Tuesday. It wasn't even a negative space. It was just like, I'm not going to deal with this today. It's not where my intuition is leading me. I recognize that I have these strict schedules that I would like to follow. My logic and my discipline would like to stay on top of these things, and I do think that's important. But in my own discernment, it seemed more important that I just drop all of my spinning plates and just let go and really allow every day, checking in like hour by hour what I should be doing. And it was good. I needed it. And ironically, funny enough, part of it was because I was spending a lot of time on this photo project, which was a lot of a theme that I'm hearing in my episodes about letting go of the past, letting go of baggage. I was getting that message pretty strongly about how to let go of things from our mind, from our energy, from our lives, sometimes physically cleaning out your space can really clear up your energy, right? To allow new things in. And that's something all summer I've been feeling is like things are coming up for me to look at one last time and release. And so also I've been doing that from a digital hygiene place of like how to clean out my digital world, right? So I was cleaning out all my photos, and all of a sudden it was so crazy on Friday. I don't even know how it happened. I was going to post nothing last week. I normally do a video on Tuesday, which is my Music as a Metaphor episode. Now, some of those weeks I was doing clips as well from the previous week before that, because I know sometimes people don't want to listen to an hour show. But to be honest with you, that was taking up a lot of time, and I didn't even like the way it was looking on my my feed. It was so much of Music as a Metaphor, and it was clipping or eclipsing my Friday night music videos, which I've been doing for a couple of years now. And so I decided to stop doing that. But on Friday, I wasn't even going to release a video. I was like, beep it. I was just like, I'm not doing anything. I didn't want to be on the digital world. I didn't want to be part of the social media space. That was part of it, because it just feels like such bread and circus lately. And I've been so uninterested in everything I'm seeing on there. So, but it was interesting because I just let go completely. And then all of a sudden, because I was going through these images, I came across a version of Why Do We Fall, which is a very pertinent song right now, based on the fact that so many people are setting themselves up to either find out things about people like P. Diddy or these stars that they put on pedestals and they've been worshiping, or they might still be doing it, with this political theater and putting people up on pedestals and fighting about it and thinking they know who these people are, all that kind of stuff. Why Do We Fall is about that. And it's also about personal betrayals. It's also about, getting involved in toxic relationships over and over and over again with people that are hurting us or abusing us, but we're not standing up for ourselves. So I love that song, Why Do We Fall? And then it kind of made sense to put it with, it's kind of a play on words, Falling Leaves, which is my favorite. If you don't know, my favorite thing of God's creation is watching the leaves change in the autumn. Especially love it on the East Coast. And so I found some really good images in my cleaning out, and the video just came together. It was one of those effortless places of creativity that I talk a lot about, getting in the zone, right? Just living in the zone where everything feels almost easy and obvious. And it's not that it is. It's not that putting that video together was an easy thing to do. But it came together in an effortless way nonetheless. You just felt right on. You just feel like you're living your path. You're living your mission. And sometimes in order to feel that, I find that it comes after a rest period. It comes after a moment of letting go of all of it, letting go of your control, letting go of things. That's something that's been very hard for me, as I've talked about here, because I feel like if God, if I feel divinely inspired by something, I feel like I got to pick it up and dig my heels in and get it done. And there are times when you have to use discipline. A lot of this comes down to wisdom and discernment about these things. But it's so wonderful when that zone happens. And I really wonder if it's possible to live in the zone 100%. And for me, a lot of times that zone comes after I've let go for a little while. And, just spent time in prayer and meditation and being in the present moment and getting out of my plans. Maybe that's more what it is when it becomes more about your own plans, your own logic, and you're getting out of tune with your own body and your own spirit and your own reality, which can happen very, very easily to type A personalities. Like we get into all of our plans and we try to make it, and we don't realize we're actually making more work for ourselves or trying too hard. And I talk about this in episode 24 that I just posted, about how so often when I'm teaching adults to sing, it's about helping them unlearn what they think they have to do to sing and returning them to this childlike state where they just know how to sing. And it happens very naturally, and they're not afraid of mistakes, and there's no fear involved, really. It's just a natural process. Whereas so often we're trying too hard. We're coming too much from our own planning or our own control, and we're out of the flow. And so that happened on Friday. It was crazy because I got the video. I was like, oh, I guess I am going to post a Friday video. No expectation, no pressure. And then I was like, wait a minute, maybe I have time to actually post a Tuesday video before it goes up. So it's so silly, but it keeps my alternating, music as a metaphor post with my music video post. So I was like, oh, maybe I can do it. And then when I listened to that, it was all about letting go. Okay. It was all about letting go. And then I came across this crazy video where I did it on the street one day back when I had actually recorded that episode. Even I think it was around the same time. I was sort of trying to flesh out these ideas of what happens in the creative process when you let go. You really do let go, and you really do say, God, you take this. Okay, you take it. Nothing is more important than my relationship with you, and I'm going to let you tell me what to do. And I'm going to let you lead me. Even if I think it should be done this way and I think this is important, I'm going to give it over to you anyways. Today, I'm going to let it all go, right? And that is something that is actually very, very difficult for many adults to do. I don't think it's difficult for everyone to do. I think some people naturally in their personality can do that. Maybe they learned it from their parents. Maybe it was something they learned as a child. Maybe they weren't as traumatized. I don't know, but I know for many of us, giving up that control, giving up that arrogance that we know best, it's so difficult to do that we don't even realize it. We might really think we've given up our lives to God, and we don't realize that there's this corner over here that we won't let him touch, and this closet over here we won't let him go in, right? So we're back to the metaphor of like cleaning out things in our lives, exposing it to God, and through our prayer work or through our creative work saying, hey, I'm going to offer this up. I want this to be for the best of the collective. I'm willing to be humble enough to admit that I don't know everything, that there's a bigger picture here. And if I can surrender to my own intuition, if I can surrender to not having to have it all figured out in my brain and going off of this plan in my brain, but instead, let go and be in the moment and sort of follow my own guidance, or it's a different way of living, really. I guess following your intuition would be the best way. And then when you do that, suddenly, like, you do know, like, suddenly the plan and you kind of get in alignment again, and everything starts flowing, and then you're divinely inspired again. And these things in this one video I put on my Instagram, I talked about freeworld.fm. And at the time, I had found out that Free World was having a hard time. This is this wonderful platform that I'll go ahead and release this on today, but it's really we're not moving to, we've only been in a soft launch now for a while, and it doesn't look like we're going to move to a big launch, even though we have so many amazing people lined up on it because of these technical issues, and because many people, this is a side project that we were doing, really trying to offer an alternative platform that's alternative to the alternative in a way. That's sort of how they're branding it, because it's not just about, there's even really a mainstream, alternative these days where you can still really be caught in a lot of fourth dimensional loops where you're not necessarily truly expanding into your own empowerment and becoming the person that you're meant to be in this earth to really enact the change that so many people are talking about. But it doesn't, a lot of it is just words, and so I felt like Free World was a great place because many of the people on there I feel like are in line. They're really talking the hard truths. They're really trying to walk the line, as I would say, but unfortunately it's not getting the support. We have some issues, and I just found that out at the time, and it was disappointing, but it was also kind of like, okay, let it go. Even though I had such a good feeling about being part of this, and I've been enjoying making these episodes every week, it still felt like you got to let these things go. You can't hold on to anything too tightly, even when you love something. Sometimes that's when you become the most vulnerable or the most rigid, is because you love something and you believe in something, and you don't realize that you still have to operate from a level of mastery that offers it up to God. Right? And you're in obedience. Your obedience to God is never subservient to any ideal you might have to bring in this world, no matter how inspired that idea is. And when you operate that way, then the inspiration returns. And then once you're in the inspiration, there's no doubt. I love being inspired, and I love the word inspired. It's a big part of what I feel like my mission is here in this planet, is to inspire others, because when you are inspired, it means in spirit, and there's no doubt. You're certain. Now, you might not be certain of every step from here to there, but you're certain you'll get there, and you're certain of what steps are right in front of you, and you're certain you can take them. That certainty, surprisingly, is a fruit of the Spirit that people don't talk about it much, because it seems at odds with faith, but they actually can exist at the same time, because certainty can be a feeling, right? Certainty can be an absence of fear, an absence of doubt. Certainty can be a state of mind that's still going hand in hand with faith, because you don't know everything. It's not knowledge based. It's not a certainty based in what you know. It's a certainty based in where you've put your faith. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So all of that came full circle last week, and I really encourage you to check out some of those things on my Instagram. Really, these days I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and freeworld.fm. That's really where I'm doing most of my stuff. But I will say, quick update on Free World. It's still really in the same place. I need to get an update on it myself, but I'm sort of thinking that this will be the last show that I release on Free World. And for the time being, I have other projects that I need to get to. And I'm thinking, last week was a big, that's the other thing, is when you take this time to rest and let go of everything and just surrender and accept where you are, like you just get into this being place, really, and you don't have to do anything. You're not making yourself do anything. You're just allowing. I find that it brings about quantum leaps too. And I've seen this a lot with my students, that sometimes we'll be working a subject, and then they leave for 2 weeks, or maybe they take the summer off. And then when they come back, effortlessly, they've quantum jumped, and that thing we were working on, that we were hitting a wall with, now they're there with it, and it's no problem. And they don't even recognize it. It's just become an integral part of their playing now, and they don't even realize they've integrated it. That's how amazing it is. So I think that rest and that ability to rest in God is so important to actually maximize your progress. It's really ironic. And there's really a lot of ironies that I've seen in teaching music, but taking the time, having the right amount of work to rest, actually brings about the maximum results. And once again, it has to come down to discernment and wisdom on what that right balance is, because there's many people that are resting too much. They're working too little and they're resting too much. I agree that can happen. But there's also a lot of other cases where people are just working all the time, 24/7. They're just pushing. And in reality, they're, once again, trying too hard. Okay, it's more of the right pattern or the right balance of picking up the mantle, taking action, masculine energy, as they would say, and then going and retreating into the feminine and allowing and letting go and just being in faith and trust for a while too, and letting things work behind the scenes, letting things work what seems like supernaturally, but like I'm saying, like lately, it feels like the more that you get in tune with your intuition and your creative abilities and you get into your imagination, the more that supernatural is starting to be a different term. Because when these synchronicities happen, like the way that my life seems to be lined up with these shows, in this very reaffirming way for me, what is that? That's not my logical mind planning that out. Is that my soul? Is my soul the supernatural aspect? Is that the Holy Spirit? Is that even beyond me? Is that God? Is that, being linked in with the fourth, fifth dimension? Whatever it is, it's accessible to us. And this is part of what I speak of when I'm saying empowering. And this is part of the reason I say that creativity is the key to your empowerment. Because when we don't actively utilize our imaginations and our creativity, we're really leaving a lot of our power on the table. Okay, most of our power. And then we're putting all of our faith into our own logic. And I talk a lot about last week about how that's just so limited, right? And it's maybe part of the fall. And that's the final thing that I'll say from last week's episode. And what is still on the table is this idea of being able to admit our mistakes, being able to admit when we're wrong, being able to be humble enough to recognize that we don't know everything and we need to course correct. And I see a lot more of that happening with people in the public, not having to come from these sort of like personas of being perfect and knowing everything and never admitting we're wrong. I mean, some people are still going that direction, but it starts to seem like there's a split between people who are still acting that way and then people who are starting to say, like, I don't have all the answers, but this is what I think now. And these public personas are saying, and then now this is what I think. And, oh, I used to think this, but now I'm thinking, recognizing that we're all kind of trying to figure out the answers to what we're in the middle of, and that's okay. That we can admit when we're wrong. We can admit our mistakes. It doesn't mean that we have to be crushed because we're not perfect. And that probably goes back to the perfectionism episode that really keeps people from being who they truly are, because in your authentic power, you don't have to be right about everything, okay? But you have to be authentic. You have to be honest with yourself above all else. And then hopefully you have the courage in your platforms and with your voice to speak honestly about those things. And that's truly what I'm trying to do here. And it's overwhelming at times, but last week, after letting it go for a week, I came back around and I actually took a quantum leap and I shared a video of me talking on the street, which kind of like, I'm not really into social media. I watch a lot of people who do that, but I've never really wanted to do that. But it just comes down to practicality and just being able to, like, how can I actually get my voice out there with the limited amount of time that I have every week, and with the fact that I don't want to be spending all my time on a computer and doing this. Like, I do want to live a life. I do have a life. But I feel more committed than ever to sharing my voice, and that's why I'm here today. So today what I want to talk about is the singing voice. But like I've mentioned, the singing voice is a place that I've been exploring actively for a very long time now, because I used to be so shy that I couldn't sing in front of anybody. And so being that I ended up being a professional singer and a voice instructor is kind of an interesting story. And a lot of what I've been focused on is the ability to open up other people who might have been shy like I was, or have blocks to it, who want to sing, but they think they have a bad voice or they can't sing. Different things like that. And I did just meet a couple where she loves to sing, but she thinks she has a terrible voice, right? And then her husband just hates to sing. He just has no desire, right? And so people who have no desire to sing, this episode probably won't be for you, because if you just don't love to sing, I don't know what to say about that. I can't relate. I've always loved singing so much. And in my opinion, all of us humans have a voice and we all want to sing. And I think if we were raised in a different environment, more like an Irish environment, maybe everyone really would just sing. Maybe some people wouldn't love it as much as others, but most people would do it, and it would be just the same as like talking or running or anything. But that's my theory, because we don't live in that world. The world we live in, there are a lot of people who just don't like to sing. So if that's the case, this probably isn't for you, because karaoke can be very, very annoying if you're not getting up there and singing. One of the best things about karaoke is that it really is a safe environment. And I'm going to talk about that, because many people need to practice singing in public. They need to practice singing on a microphone. They need sort of that pressure to do that, because what you don't realize sometimes is, like, you can be at home singing, or you can be singing along with the radio, but it's different when you have somebody singing with you, and it's different when you don't have a microphone in hand. And we've talked a little bit on my episodes about holding back. Some of these scenarios can really help you to have experiences with your voice, to really get to know your voice, to really spend time with your voice. So let me talk about a few of the karaoke experiences that I've had recently. One of them was in a private karaoke room. This is level 1. If you are somebody who really cannot imagine getting out and singing, or if you're somebody who, and I've spoken with somebody recently about this, she had long COVID and feels like her high end has never come back the way she would have liked it to, but she hasn't also really explored it. So one of the things I recommended is that she gets back on some vocal warm-ups. Vocal warm-ups is something I really, really advocate for, because it's basically conditioning, okay? It's conditioning. It's the way to get your voice into shape. And many people are dealing with what they think is a bad voice, but in reality, their voice just isn't in shape. It's like you're not in shape enough to like run a mile, but you think you're going to be a good tennis player. You have to be in shape first before you can even really see what your potential is. And so vocal warm-ups are that. And that's another episode. We can talk about that. But, I do have some vocal warm-ups if you're interested in though. And I probably should do a video on that, just a little tutorial video sometime. But going back to this particular student, I was advising that they go into a karaoke room, because what happens in these karaoke rooms, and I just did this recently, it was just me, it was just two people. We just went into a karaoke room together, private. Like in a lot of Asian parts of town in America, a lot of Asian cultures love these rooms. And so you can find those in a lot of cities. Okay, they're karaoke rooms. You rent the room. I think it was like $35 an hour, which is not terrible. You have microphones, you have a book, and you just go. This is what we did. We went for it. Okay. And I was having some issues lately where my voice was getting kind of rock and rolly, and it was feeling rigid in my higher end. And so this is one of the methods I use, is I just got in there and I just went for it. And I didn't care how I sounded. There was nobody in there. I didn't care how painful it was. As long as it wasn't literally painful to me, I didn't care what it sounded like. And the person I was with didn't care what it sounded like. And we just went for it, man. And that's level one, just ripping it. Right? And the funny thing is that you find when you do this is after about an hour of this, you find it's been kind of opened up. Right? As long as you didn't do anything, you have to be aware of it becoming actually literally painful. But if it's not painful, it's just kind of tight and it just sounds bad, keep doing it. And then what you'll find is that, going back to that not trying too hard thing and returning to yourself as a little girl, you're just kind of having fun in this room. You're just kind of like, you're picking out songs that maybe you've always wanted to sing. And then like I did this with Boston's More Than a Feeling. And it turns out it's like actually really hard to sing, because karaoke is not going to be in your key. Okay, most of the time, like 1 out of 10 songs is going to be in your key. And as a professional musician, you would sing songs in your key, or you would put them in your key, or you would work really hard to, work for a while to make the paths in your voice to sing it in a particular key if you can't change it. You wouldn't just like first time be able to sing it not in your key very well. So this is one of the reasons why karaoke can be so painful, because a lot of people who aren't even professional singers are being set up to fail by singing these songs that are just absolutely not in their range. But if you don't care about that, if you just get up there and you just make it like about expressing things, like you're singing the words, you're just having fun, you just get into being like a little girl, and you got a microphone, and we would pretend like we're like singing to a stadium or something, and you just get into the fun of it. Your voice, and you're singing that whole time, right? Your voice will figure things out for you that you don't even need to worry about. And this is one of the biggest things I do with voice lessons sometimes, is I've had the teachers that get into every tiny little technical thing, and it almost deconstructs the voice, and you almost get worse at singing. Sometimes I've always tried to just see if we can have breakthroughs, see if we can develop things without overthinking it, without trying too hard, without putting too many to-dos on things. One of my teachers, Carrie Christ in Paris, she was great with just bringing a level of awareness to it. You're aware that your voice is tight, but you're not necessarily doing anything to change it. Or if you are, there's a couple of broad techniques that I can speak about that you can try to do, right? Some sort of broad problem solving. But in many cases, if you'll just spend time with your voice, and in a not fearful way or a not controlling way, your voice figures out things. It's amazing. Honestly, it is truly a natural ability, in my opinion. And the more that you're getting into the expression of it and the fun of it, the more that your diaphragm will come online, and your whole singing apparatus will sort of line up for you. Whereas the other side is when you get too much into like, do I sound good? Is my technique right? When you start to get into that left brain side of things and you're not in the expression anymore, sometimes that actually deflates your diaphragm. That actually takes it offline, because the diaphragm is all about expression. And if you're not really even motivated by expression in that song, and you're more just thinking like, do I sound good? You're worried about your image. You're sort of getting out of body at that point and too much into your own head. and you're not, fully being, you're not allowing your body intelligence to take over, which I am here to tell you that your body has a lot of intelligence. Muscle memory is a real thing, okay? And it takes trust, it takes letting go for it to come online, because you can sort of override these instincts and these patterns that you've learned by overthinking and tripping yourself up by trying too hard, right? So a karaoke room is level 1 if you love singing but you think you have a bad voice, or if you're in a place where you there's some walls you're hitting in your voice and you don't know what to do about it. Okay, and you're not sure. Maybe you should take voice lessons, maybe you shouldn't. Try out at some karaoke rooms. Try it out for a few months. Once a week for a few months, just rent a room. You can even do it by yourself. Go through some of the same songs. See if you're making progress that way. This is such a fun way. And it's also a baby step to the next version, which would be to go ahead and find a karaoke night. There's a karaoke night that I've been going to. And I will tell you, it is the best group of human beings that I've ever come across. No, I'm exaggerating here, but it is truly a little community of people that they don't take it too seriously. Some of them are decent singers, some of them aren't, but even a decent singer, he might get up and kill one song and then he gets up later and just sounds terrible on another. And it's so refreshing to be with adults and not care about your image and just get up there and just be having fun because you want to sing. And you don't care, and the crazy thing, and this guy told me at this place that it was true, they'll clap just as loud for the people who sound really good as the ones who sound terrible. It's like they're supportive no matter what, who's up there. That community, this really can come down to a form of therapy. I really think that the people that are involved with going there every week to this, I do think it's a form of therapy for them. I think it's something very, very healing, something they can just get up there and vent and express in a healthy way. Even if the song isn't necessarily like the words aren't something they're expressing, let's say they're just getting up there and whatever, that can just feel good. It really can. As human beings, honestly, singing can just feel really, really good, whether you sound good or bad. So if you're in the category of somebody who likes to sing but you think you can't sing good, number one, I'll say you might sing better than you think, and you might have the potential to sing a lot better than you think, getting yourself in shape. But there are communities out there where it doesn't matter. They feel the same way that you do, and it's just fun. It's just good old-fashioned fun and community, and I loved seeing that. Now, I will admit, as a music teacher and a musician, sometimes it's hard to sit through some of it. I mean, it can really get under your skin. Hearing people scream or be off pitch, or in many cases, it's just the wrong keys, So I'm not like a diehard karaoke person, because I'd probably prefer open mics or jazz jams where people are, it's just a little bit more music based and people are, kind of trying to sing in their keys or, write songs, express on. Those are probably more of my preferred outlets. But I have found that because I've been a little bit more focused on singing only gigs, not just singing pianist gigs, I've been using these as a way to work through some of my stage presence, right? Also trying to figure out what songs get crowds going, song selections. And then, like I said, like just working through some of the blocks that I've been feeling in my voice. Some of the places, I mean, if you're on a journey with your voice, it's incredible because you have these valleys and these plateaus and these mountains. And there's been some things that I almost had started to give up on my voice about and just wonder, like, am I getting older? Am I not, doing enough vocal warm-ups? Am I not out gigging enough? And I've lost a little bit. But then it's amazing because under the right circumstances and the right times, I'm exceeding some of that. My high end, I also had an experience last week where I did like a 3-hour rehearsal singing only, and I was amazed what my voice would do. So, sometimes you have to put yourself in these challenging scenarios. You have to take the risk to see even really what is there for you. And that's what these karaoke rooms and these karaoke experiences can do. But more so than anything, I think it's getting into a regular practice with it. You know, if you're a singer and you like singing, finding a karaoke spot like I've been lucky enough to find, and you could go there once a week. You can have certain songs you're working on during the week. Like I talked to this guy who's a regular at this karaoke spot, and he was saying how every week he'll be thinking all week about what songs he wants to do on that Thursday. And there a lot has to do with what's happening in his life. And this happens. I know he wants to sing this. And talking to his friends at other things, saying like, what song do you think I should, just it adds a fun dimension. It brings music into his life in a way that helps his whole life to be more fulfilling. And, he's a guy that I think takes singing a little bit more seriously, but not all the way seriously. Like he doesn't really care if he sings a song and it's not in his key. He's not thinking in terms of that, This is just a creative outlet and an expression for him. And I guarantee he's getting better over the years. You can tell the songs that he knows he can sing really well, and he gets up there and he has a repertoire of those, and he's continually building those, and then he kind of gets up there and sings a song and realizes it's not in his range, and maybe he won't do that one all the time. Right now, if he plays an instrument, or if he wants to take it to the next level of playing with, other musicians or getting into music theory, he could have the data that song needs to be in a different key, and then he goes and explores it in a different key, right? And I was thinking that like maybe someday we will have karaoke where it'll transpose it to any key on the spot. People would still have to know what their key is, and so then I was thinking, well, it'd have to be like where that person speaks into a microphone, and then the machine can tell what key. I honestly bet we'll be there at some point. And then honestly, karaoke will be badass, because many, many of these people sing way better than they sound if it was just put in the right key for them. That also reminds me that I've done this, and I was just with a pianist that's currently offering this. So live karaoke with the piano, anybody, super fun. And that takes it to the next level of learning more about musicianship, being able to put it in different keys. It's harder because it doesn't sound exactly like the version, right? You're having to work more with the pianist, and on top of that, like you don't have the words lighting up for you. So it does take another level of musicianship, but many, many people enjoy that. And there's that happening a lot too. I was doing it for a while before COVID. And including many of the singing pianist gigs I have, if somebody would like to come up and sing with me, it always is on the table, right? Because I think I love accompanying people with live piano. So maybe I'll get out there and do that at some point again. I wish I could offer that online, to be honest with you. If I could do like an online open mic / karaoke, and then I could accompany people if they needed it, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do that in a heartbeat. I miss that work so much. But for now, that's not possible. For now, most of the online platforms, I really can't accompany people live. I could record something. I'm working with a platform right now where I can record something and send it to you immediately, and then you sing with it. So that's better for voice lessons for sure. There's been some improvements to the online platforms, but if things are moving the way they're moving, maybe we're talking like 4 or 5 years. We're in a scenario where we can do a lot of things through the technology, like I'm mentioning. That would be great, So those are my thoughts. My final thought, and I saw this on a flyer. I thought it was very clever. Somebody was saying like 1 hour of voice lessons is worth like 60 hours of therapy. I don't know how they came up with that correlation. I think that sounds like it might be an over-exaggeration, but I do believe that. I do really believe there's something about using the voice, singing, in particular when it's not about trying to be perfect or being in a competitive mindset, but it's coming from an expressive mindset, a right brain creative mindset. I think there's something so healing, so restorative, that I do believe that. And that's why I advocate for students picking songs that they emotionally resonate with. This is why I also advocate for people writing songs. I just started this in the last few days. I've had some songs come, right? I've been composing some songs the last few days. And in particular, yesterday, something I've been doing a lot lately because the weather is so gorgeous here and I love the leaves changing and I want to be outside all the time. So I've been practicing outside. I've just been bringing my travel keyboard and practicing amongst the trees. And yesterday I started to compose just from a really raw emotional place. And I'll continue to work on that song. It felt really good, really, really good. And so all of these activities, using the voice, songwriting, playing an instrument, learning these modes of expression, I think they're important because I think it is a form of therapy, because it is a way of dealing with our emotions, but from a masterful place where we are channeling our emotions in something healthy as opposed to the emotions taking over and affecting our lives, our day-to-day lives, right? Not being able to control them. Like, for example, me writing that song yesterday and coming from that place, it freed me up to come in and not necessarily feel this dark cloud on me, right? The rest of my evening was rather pleasant because I sort of helped to dispel that cloud through the song. And it's alchemical when you think in terms of turning it into something beautiful. But it doesn't have to be beautiful, right? Sometimes it just has to be turned into something else. So if you go to karaoke and you scream out some song, you do it in a way that is not maybe aesthetically as beautiful, but it was still expressed authentically. Maybe that's the key, authentic. It has to be expressed in an authentic way. It has to be taken from this sort of monkey on your back that's controlling you and to you controlling it and you transforming it into something else, right? You putting it into something that you can look at and say, hey, this is this, right? I'm going to let you go. I feel to heal. This is what I talked a lot in episode 24 is really that process of why feeling to heal frees us up from these emotions, these programmings, these traumas, these cyclical behaviors that we can't get out of, these addictions, right? Feeling to heal, I believe, is so key to this. And I talk a lot in episode 24, which is up on my YouTube. So you can find out more about feeling to heal, but that's what we're talking about here. And that's why getting a singing practice with karaoke is really a great thing. It doesn't matter what level you're on, from beginner to semi-pro to even pro. You can always be using these karaoke spots as that type of place. And if you haven't experienced one, be on the lookout for one. I'm not sure they're all as wonderful and friendly as the one that I have found. I cannot believe how supportive and kind the people are there. And I love seeing that. I really, really do. I love seeing, it's wonderful when you get out in the world and you really see how supportive and kind people are with each other. I think it can be surprising these days because the way things are presented online, and if you're only really living and seeing the world through online, you might honestly think that people are such assholes, and I think there's some truth to that. But I've also been fortunate enough lately to really see how kind people can be to each other, how uplifting they can be to each other, and doing that through the arts is a wonderful thing. Now, I also saw something this last week I want to mention, and it was opera. And this, I will say, I just want to mention this because I don't hear that much opera, to be honest with you. And this was sort of a lower production opera that I got to see. But that is, I think, one of the most powerful ways you can experience the human voice. Is when you go and hear operatic singing. That is a reminder of how powerful our voices are and can be. And granted, it's an art form that nobody is that interested in anymore, but the visceral feelings that you get from hearing operatic singing, it was crazy because I had to fight my own kind of sense of boredom at times, to be honest with you, or a restlessness with it, because there wasn't really a storyline. I could not follow what was going on at all. It was just song after song after song. But at the same time, oh my gosh, by the second or third song, I was in a different state of mind. And this was out amongst the trees and hearing this. Oh man, it was refreshing and uplifting, and it put me in a different mindset. And it was such a subtle shift that if I had let myself get pulled into my phone or get pulled into like, let's go do something else or whatever, I might have missed it. But all of a sudden I started realizing like, hey, I'm in a better mood. You know, I'm like, wow, there's something about this. So we stayed, we watched the whole thing, even though there was times I was kind of wanting to leave, and definitely wanting there to be more of a storyline. I was fascinated by the way that I felt just hearing these voices, these incredible voices. And I was also I really loved the way that they were acting and expressing. I didn't know what they were talking about, to be honest with you, but they were so expressive. They weren't just singing. They were telling you something. They were talking to you. They were expressing. They were 100% in it. And that was inspiring to me. As I'm mentioning, I've been thinking more about my stage presence, thinking more about the words that I'm saying in between songs, which is also what I'm doing here. Thinking more, working on the craft of talking, right? And working on the craft of, if you're holding people's attention, you know, if you're speaking to a crowd, if you're speaking to more than one person, it's not one-to-one, or even if you are speaking, how can you really honor their time? How can you really put your full heart into the expression of what you're doing? If you're singing a song, how can you really keep the audience captured, you know, by, you know, that you're not just singing notes, you're like putting your whole body and soul into expressing something. And so even though I didn't know what these people are saying, the full 100% weight of their souls in this expression, not only in the notes, but in their body language and their facial expression. I mean, you could just tell they were in it. They were 100% committed. And so that's something that I find inspiring as well. Now, right before that, there happened to be the cutest little band. They were a college band that were cooking, man. Cooking. Original songs. They also, who did they start with? Lady Gaga. You know, so they were doing some covers, they were doing some originals, all very young. And once again, I was very, very impressed with the lead singer, who was probably in her 20s, but she had the confidence, man. She had the authority. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That 100% commitment, standing and owning your authority, standing and owning that position at that moment, and not feeling shy about it at all. Right. So this brings it full circle. I'm still working on that part of me that doesn't really think I deserve to be up there, doesn't really think I did, you know, have that I should be there holding everybody's attention. Other people should be doing it, not me. You know, this, whatever idea that is, that shyness, wherever shyness comes from, it's still something that I'm working on. But I could tell that this little girl just naturally didn't have it. She didn't have it. I mean, I say little girl, she's in her 20s. But her stage presence was absolutely amazing. It really was. And I'll say her voice was pretty darn good. But as a voice instructor, sometimes I am a little bit cursed that I can just hear things, right? I can hear things really well that maybe other people can't. I think that's a little bit why karaoke can be hard for me, because it can be hard to sit through like number after number of hearing these kind of vocal things, and you know, I'm just very hyper aware of them. And this girl, it was the same thing. It was a reminder to me of how difficult, this brings it full circle, how difficult it is to sing live. I can guarantee this girl had a fantastic voice, okay? And a lot of what she was singing was pretty darn good. But there was other times where there was an edge to it. There was other times when it was coming across a little bit yelling. Some of it might have been the EQ as well. I was with another musician who was saying that like in the 3,000 range, there was some kind of spike happening. And so there could have been a little bit that the system wasn't giving her a fair shake. But these are all the kind of things that you have to kind of work out in live performances. You have to kind of figure these things out for yourself, because you can be a great singer and it still comes across like a little bit annoying, right? It's very, very easy to annoy people with the human voice. I've said before that the human voice is like the violin, and they're in the sense that they can invoke emotion and tears unlike any other instrument. They just bring them to the surface so quickly. But I think the human voice, like the violin, if it's out of pitch at all, it can really be irritating, right? It can be a very irritating sound. And so this little girl has a little bit to do, to get there. This was a big opportunity for her and her band. Honestly, they did a great job. I'm sure they're going to keep moving to the next level. But it just was a reminder, and this is a reminder to anybody out there, that it is difficult. It is really difficult because you can get up there and even the temperature or the EQ or the way that, the audience is there, and that just gives your voice a slight rigidity that's not normally there. I mean, all these little things in your voice can make a big difference to your performance. So this isn't easy work. It really does take the repetition of getting up, and then you figure these things out as you go, right? You gain a level of mastery by facing this over and over and over again. And in many cases, I don't know if I recommend this for karaoke, but I guess you could, listening back to your performance. And because sometimes on stage, it's different to you than how it actually sounds out there. And neither one are necessarily the absolute objective truth, but at least it gives you data and it gives you things that you can work on, right? And it's a process. And the more that you're using the voice, the better you're going to get at it. Oh, I've been finding myself saying this to a lot of students this week. Human beings get better at whatever they do repetitively, no matter what. They figure out faster ways to do it. They get more efficient at it. They get smarter at it. You see it over and over and over again. So if you want to get better at singing, if you love singing, just keep doing it. But don't just do it at home. Okay, do it at home, sing at home as much as you can. Consider getting out into some of these opportunities where you could sing in front of people, or even just in more public spaces, even going to the park like I've been doing, right? Even the idea that somebody could overhear you, and see what that does to your voice. See if it changes it. See if it makes it a little edgier. See if your throat gets a little bit more rigid. See what changes happen, and then you deal with them. You just bring your level of awareness to it, and you don't stop. You don't give up. And you, as a child, the childlike mind, the childlike ability to sing, if you keep coming from a place of joy, make it fun. Hopefully you'll have a support group, people that you're excited to see every week at karaoke or an open mic or whatever. Maybe you get a band together, right? And it becomes a part of your life. It becomes something that you're committed to doing. And when you do that, you'll find that in many cases, you will just effortlessly get better. Your voice will just effortlessly get stronger. You'll get effortlessly better at keeping things in pitch, right? And keep in mind that this is the process. Like I was just speaking with somebody who is, who was that I was talking to? A professional singer, and there was she was somewhere, and the feedback from the way the acoustics were in the room were making her pitchy. And she actually, I know her ears are incredible. She's absolutely, her pitch is, I would almost say, it's very close to perfect pitch. She's very good relative pitch, let's say that. And she would find that she'd be pitchy when she would perform in certain scenarios based on sound systems and stuff. But that's the kind of thing where if she'll just keep putting herself in those scenarios, she'll figure it out. Her ears will correct, right? She'll figure out what needs to be done. That it's just nothing to stress about. But if she gives up, if she doesn't keep going into those scenarios, then it stays frozen in time. That's the way it is, right? So that's what this episode is about, is just encourage people who love singing, whatever place you're in with it, to get yourself into some regular situations where you can sing. And if that isn't enough, if you've tried that, or if that sounds like something you're just unwilling to do, please get in touch. I offer a 45-minute consultation where we can talk about what your specific issues are, and I can set you up on, if you're not able to afford regular lessons with me, that's no problem. I can set you up with a lot of resources where you can do it on your own, or maybe having regular lessons is the right thing, because sometimes you just need somebody to kind of be there with you as you sort of lay some foundations or work on some harder concepts. And there are times when you need a vocal instructor to kind of say, hey, I'm hearing this, why don't you try this? And I've talked about that on some of my episodes, some of the basic apparatuses. So I might try to link that whenever I post this on Facebook or where I don't actually post on Facebook. Anyway, I've been talking for a while. I think I'm going to start to wrap it up here. So, yeah, getting out there and singing karaoke's, to wrap it up, is a great way to express yourself, work on your emotional intelligence, your mastery of your emotions, and at the same time gain a valuable skill of expression, which is singing. In that way, I guess I'm going to take my own advice and I'm going to continue this work I'm doing here where I'm talking through different concepts, but I am working on a lot of different projects, trying to figure out how to get my particular voice. And now when I'm saying voice, it's not just my singing voice anymore. It's like my perspective on music and life and using our creativity in a way to become empowered, that I actually think is at the crux of what everybody needs to be doing right now. So I'm going to continue to develop this voice. I'm going to continue to share it. The truth is, though, I'm not sure if it's going to be here on freeworld.fm. So, and the funny thing is, I've typically like talked to the end of the episode and then had more to say, right? This is the first time I've gotten to the end of the episode and I don't really have anything else to say about, I don't know. So I think maybe this might be the right time to say this will be the last episode of season 1. It's episode 30. So I think that's what I'm going to say, is this is the last episode I'll put up on freeworld.fm. There will continue to be a backlog of about 6 episodes that need to come up once a week on my YouTube. And I'm going to be working in the background on this content and bringing it to you in different ways. The quantum leap that happened to me last week expanded my imagination about how I can sort of be sharing this content. So I feel like, especially with, the end of the year coming up, the last 2 weeks of the year, I think I'm going to say for now, this is episode 30. This is the end of season 1. And anyone who has stayed with me and listened to this whole season, I want to say thank you so much. So much for being here with me. This has turned out to be a form of therapy for me. I've heard other people saying that about podcasting, and I really didn't understand what they mean. But now I do, because I show up here and I talk about relevant topics during the week. And then crazy enough, I'm in a weird time loop where 6 episodes back, I end up listening to those episodes and giving myself advice I need to hear. So I'm going to continue this work, and I'm going to continue to share it for anybody that it might be helpful to, with the spirit that it's about inspiring you to your voice, to uncovering your own gifts, uncovering your own voice, your uniqueness, what you have to offer, because I've always believed that we're all pieces in a beautiful mosaic, and that it's up to each of us. It's the main responsibility of each of us to figure out what piece we have to play. And when we do, it's not about taking advantage of other people or dominating other people, or it's not about being all about us. It's about being unified with others. It's about serving our collective. And in that way, we get this wonderful sense of well-being where we are enough. We're not better than our brothers and sisters, and we're not worse. We're contributing to society in a healthy way that only we can do. So we're needed. We're important. We're not special. We're not better than. We're not worse than. But we are important. We're needed. We're purposeful. Our lives is for a purpose. And when each of us steps up and lives that from a loving place, then I believe that that's what brings heaven on earth. And I know we feel so far from it these days, and we're about to go into this election, and I'm purposely not talking about any of that, because I think that there is a space that we can get to where our vibration is so high that it trickles down to all of that. And we need more individuals doing that. We need more, individuals really owning their authority and their power and using their creative energy to create a better world, and not giving away that creative power to other people, right? But owning in authority your creative power as a child of God. and learning how to be in God's alignment, that He is sovereign and that through Him we are okay, even though it doesn't seem like it, and that He's the one that we should put our faith in. And through that faith, we can live in a certainty. And whenever that certainty is, spreads to our brothers and sisters, and the fear just gets abolished. And once the fear is gone, now we're in a whole new ballgame. So thanks so much for listening to me. Season 1, a lot of it was improv, which is my MO. But I want to send it right back at you and hope that you're living your most inspired life. God bless.